Hey everybody, my name is Michael Herzl. I'm the Social Studies Curriculum Coordinator at Life Schools, and I am going to give you a kind of an overview of this lecture that you've already seen, but hopefully I hit it in a different way than your teacher, and so I give you a different form of review. It's always good to hear different perspectives on different things, and so I'm going to hopefully give you a different perspective on this, and hopefully you'll be able to pass the test and move on to the next level and get your higher grade than the grade that you got on your previous test. Obviously that's why you're here, because you struggled a little bit on that, and so I'm going to just help you out with it. And yeah. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to do all the things that it says here. You're going to be able to position and label 7 continents and 4 oceans to create a world map. You're going to be able to use the equator and prime meridian to identify the 4 hemispheres. Locate the countries of Spain, England, and France. And identify reasons for European exploration of North America. Now the first 3 are things that you should have learned K through 6, but it's okay. A lot of times people forget those things, or maybe they just weren't taught a lot. There's no STAR test for social studies in K through 6, and so sometimes the topic of social studies is neglected. So no worries, we're going to go over that now in detail. So it's important that you know the continents, but I'm going to assume that you guys went over that during class, so we'll just kind of skip over this. But you've got North America, South America, you have Europe, you have Asia, you have Africa, you have Australia, and you have Antarctica. It's also important to be able to name the 4 oceans. And the reason why is because we're going to talk a lot about where people came from, or exploration of different places, and so to give you a reference point when we talk about the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, it's very important to know what those are. Specifically those 2 for our course, but it's good to just know the main oceans in general. So you have the Atlantic Ocean there, Pacific Ocean to the west coast of the United States. You have the Indian Ocean, which if you look, this is, let me bring my pointer up. This is India right here. And so that's kind of easy to remember that that's the Indian Ocean. You have the Arctic Ocean. All right, it's important to know what North America is versus South America. So this is considered North America, and Mexico is a part of that as well. And it's important to know these countries: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And so this course, at the beginning of this course in the time of history, when we're looking at that time frame, 1400s, 1500s, and into the 1600s, you don't necessarily have these countries established, and some of them you don't have until far later. And so this course is really going to teach you why or how these countries came to be. Also, it's important to know that before the time frame of this course, even in the 1400s, you have countries that are here like England, France, Italy, Spain, in Europe, so European countries, and that's where our explorers are going to come from. And one of the countries that this doesn't hit that's very important is this little country here next to Spain, and it's called Portugal. So it's important that you listen to what I'm about to say about Portugal, because it's going to be important later on when we talk about exploration. Portugal is known as kind of the experts, the very founders of oceanic exploration. So any kind of navigating the seas, remember they don't have GPS back then, they have to navigate by the stars, and they have to build ships that are seaworthy for being out in the middle of the ocean. And so the absolute experts in that field were Portugal. If you're going to go and seek out, if you want to be the best doctor that you could be, or the best lawyer or something like that, you're going to find a college that really specializes in that, and you're going to go there. And when you come out, everyone will know, hey, this person went to such and such college for medical school, and so they know what they're talking about. Well, that would be Portugal for navigation, for being a sailor, being a captain of a ship. If you wanted to know the ins and outs of that, if you wanted to be around the people who are the best at that, you went to Portugal. Eventually that's going to spread into Spain and into the rest of Europe, but Portugal is kind of the beginning of that. And again, that's very important for what we're about to talk about. Who sailed the ocean blue in 1492? Well, we know that was Columbus, Christopher Columbus, right? Christopher Columbus is going to be a part of the beginning of Spanish exploration. So we talked about Portugal and how good they were, and that eventually starts to worry Spain. So Spain says, man, we need to get our stuff together and start to explore. And so Christopher Columbus comes along right at a time when Portugal had explored most of the west coast of Africa already, and so he kind of pitches the idea to Spain. I'm sorry. He pitches the idea to Spain to say, give me money and I'll go explore and find the East Indies. And so because they're worried about Portugal being so dominant in that, in exploration, they're going to be more willing to give him the money. Now, why are they so worried about it? Well, because with exploration comes natural resources, which means that you're going to get a lot of, gold and silver, and even things like, lumber that you could get, or there's all kinds of natural resources that we could list here. But even trade with a country or trade with a group of people could be important. So they don't want to miss out on that, because that brings money directly back into their pockets of their country, and obviously that makes them more powerful. So Christopher Columbus is going to convince them that is a good thing to do. He takes 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And after kind of a difficult voyage, he lands believing he was in the East Indies, but he wasn't. He was actually in an island south of North America known as San Salvador. And so he discovered America. Now we say he discovered America because it was a European discovery. So for them it was a discovery. Obviously for the Native Americans who lived there before, it wasn't a discovery, but for Europe it was. So he's going to come back. So Christopher Columbus is going to come back to Spain with this information in 1493, and he's going to tell the king and the queen that, hey, listen, I discovered this new land, this new territory. And so they want to make sure, Spain wants to make sure that Portugal, because remember, Portugal, which is right over here, Portugal, they're the experts. And they have already explored all the way down the Gold Coast of Africa. That's this coast right here that my dot is pointing to. They've explored all the way down there, and they've got lots of gold. That's why it's called the Gold Coast. They also have been able to get a lot of natural resources and a lot of trade because of that. And so they're really experts at that. And eventually they're going to come all the way back up this side and even to India. And so Spain wants to kind of say, hey, we don't want you exploring our territory because you're better at exploration than we are. And so both Spain and Portugal are Catholic countries. And so to solve their problem, they go to the Pope. And the Pope makes a deal and says, okay, we're going to figure this out, and we're going to do it through a treaty. And so that's how you get the Treaty of Tordesillas. The Treaty of Tordesillas is a line drawn right through the Atlantic Ocean that goes down, so like right where my pointer's going. And it goes down and it cuts off North and South America on this side, and it says, hey, this is all Spanish to explore. And it says, hey, this over here on this side of the line, okay, over here, is all Portugal's to explore. and you guys are not going to go into each other's territory. It's kind of an agreement. It's a treaty between those two countries that they won't go into each other's territory. Now, interestingly enough, the treaty, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was intended, it cuts off a part of South America right about here. And if you look at a map, this doesn't go down far enough, but if you look at a map, that is Brazil. And so think about, do you know what language Brazilians speak today? They speak Portuguese, right? So if you look at South America, to the right of the Treaty of Tordesillas line, they're going to speak Portuguese in Brazil. To the left of that line, what do people in South America and even Central America, what do they speak? They speak Spanish, right? And so then as well, if you look at what people speak in the United States, that's going to be English. So English explorers are going to be the ones that come here for the most part. There are other explorers as well. We'll talk about all that later. Up in Canada, what is a weird, kind of a strange language? Sometimes we learn about it and we go, why do they speak that language in Canada? That is French. So not everybody in France or in Canada speaks French, but some people still do. I was looking at a webpage the other day of somebody I know that's in Canada, and he had some French on there. And so all of these are influences of that are today influences of the exploration that happened a long time ago. And that all starts with Christopher Columbus's voyage. So if we look at Christopher Columbus's journey, it's going to go from Spain to San Salvador there. Now, Ponce de Leon is going to be another Spanish sailor, and he is going to go looking for the Fountain of Youth. They really thought that existed back then, which is kind of funny. But he thought that existed. What he really ends up finding is Florida, and Florida is interesting. So what we're going to learn, and what you guys are going to learn, is that anytime the Spanish explore North America, and particularly what we now call the United States, it is not going to be good for them. There's no gold here, and certainly not the amount of gold that they're going to find in Central and South America. The gold and the silver that they find in Central and South America is going to change the gold and silver markets across the world. It actually made silver less valuable because there was so much of it. But they're not going to find that in Florida. They're not going to find that in when they come through Texas and some of those other places that they go. So, but it is one of the first things that is found by the Spanish. He explored the area later that became St. Augustine, and we still have that, St. Augustine, Florida. So it's the first Spanish settlement in the New World. And that also, it's interesting, so St. Augustine also becomes a area where they used to, the Spanish would use to come against pirates. So the pirates of the Caribbean Sea, pirates of the Caribbean. You guys heard about that? Yeah, it was a real thing. And the reason why they were pirates is because Spain was exporting from Central and South America all of this gold and silver. So if you're a pirate and you could take over one of those ships, man, you could make a lot of money. So there were lots of pirates, and so that port in St. Augustine is going to become valuable for the Spanish, just as a defensive port to stop people who were trying to rob them by way of piracy. All right, so here is Ponce de Leon's journey, right there to St. Augustine, Florida. Jacques Cartier. Where do you think Jacques comes from? Yeah, he comes from France. And what do we know? Who speaks French today? Yeah, the Canadians. So where do you think Jacques is going to explore? Well, he's going to explore up near Canada. He's looking for the Northwest Passage to the Indies. So they thought that there was like a river that ran all the way through the new land that had been discovered. which they're going to keep looking for that even up until Lewis and Clark and when we were a country with Thomas Jefferson, and nobody ever finds it. There is no passage. So we explored the St. Lawrence River in what we now know as Canada, near what we now know as Quebec. So here you go. Here is Jacques Cartier's journey to the St. Lawrence River. Christopher Newport. Now that sounds like an English name. And in fact, he was from England. He's going to be sent by the Virginia Company to establish a colony in the New World. And so he's English. So where do you think he's going to sail to? Who speaks English in North and South America? That's right, the United States does. So if you look at geographically where he's going to land, it's going to be what is now, not then, but now, the United States. Right, so he lands in the New World in 1607, and he names the new settlement Jamestown after King James of England. And Jamestown is the first successful English settlement. We're going to talk a lot about it later. It's located on the James River, which is now in Virginia. It's the first successful settlement. There was one before it, Roanoke, but we don't know what happened to them. Still a mystery today. They kind of disappeared. All right, if we look at Christopher Newport's voyage, remember he's English from England, and who speaks English? The United States. So where's he going to go? Oh, right there to what is now the United States, and we all speak English. So that should give you a good idea of the explorers, where they came from, why they spoke the language, why we speak the language now that we speak in different parts of Central, South, and North America. And hopefully you can take the test now and ace it and get your grade up. All right, until next time, bye.